What I decided I was going to do was kind of go through how myself and Joe Mazumdar at Exploration Insights kind of look at and evaluate potential properties or companies that we're going to buy. And I'm not sure how many of you know of this Hercules copper discovery in Idaho just recently. If you do, I'd be interested to know how many know this. Okay, good. So this is the story. This is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the discovery, location, setting. It was a silver company. They found copper. We'll go through the alteration, mineralization, drill results. And then I'm going to let you make a pick as to where you think they are in this system, whether it's something you should buy or not. And what I've thrown up here is a real basic model, schematic, of what a simple porphyry copper looks like. So you can get a sense of it. The green outer shell doesn't have any or hardly any copper or gold. It's mostly pyrite. But it gives a good, strong IP reflecting the geophysics. Within that, you start to get into what they call phyllic alteration, which is a sericite, a white clay, and the rock has been more altered. As you get deeper into this thing, the alteration, the geothermal system gets hotter, and you get something what they call potassic alteration. That's generally where the good copper goes. And then beneath that, you've got the barren intrusive beneath that. And how these things work is, in my view, as the metal, the magma starts to crystallize into a granite, the crystals fall out, but the scum that doesn't get caught in the quartz and feldspars and stuff, which is water, gold, copper, minerals like that, it floats to the top of the intrusive, and that's where the porphyry copper is. And if you go above that, faults into that, is where the hot springs come up and bring you your epithermal gold at the top. We're going to stick to the porphyry copper today. So this is how it's been going. This was a 7-cent stock back in June of 22 when they raised $2.3 million. They did another private placement in April of last year, raised 5.7 at 20 cents. Then in late October, November range, they put out a drill hole hitting 185 meters at 0.84% copper. Nice hit. You can see what it did the share price. Later on, November, VRIC put a placement to them, $23 million at $1.10. So this has gone from 7 cents really to $1.50 in a little over a year and a half. They put out next set of drill results, and you can see what happened. 161 meters at 0.45%. Right? And now we're back down to, it looks like, about 75 cents. Cashed up, good company, good management, no problems there at all. I like them. Regional setting. This is the very southern end of the porphyry copper belt that runs through British Columbia. And you can see the different deposits as you come down. Where it makes that bend is where this discovery is. And there's a number of porphyry coppers in the area that were known before. They're all low grade and small, but this is a new discovery. First produced silver back in the late 1800s. In the mid to late 70s, 80s, there were a bunch of holes drilled chasing the near surface silver zinc mineralization. Again, there are regional porphyries that have been drilled to some point. A new private company coming out, Scout, have picked up Cuddy Mountain and a number of other things, and they're going to try and go for that. Since then, VRIC and Rio have been staking as well. It's on state land, which is very positive, and it's just 3 hours from Boise, so access infrastructure is good. All right, drilling to date. Originally, there were about 300 now shallow holes testing this near-surface silver mineralization, which was, honestly mediocre, I think. And their objective was to define this silver resource. They did an IP survey that showed a big geophysical anomaly beneath where the silver was, and which is what drove them to drill this deep hole, which hit 185 meters at 0.84%. If you pull the top bit out, which is where the high grade was, the remainder hole graded 0.5% at 140 meters. And I'll show you in this next section. And there you can see on that map, I've put a square around where that one drill hole is that caused all the excitement. All right, so we're going to do some geology. This is a complex system. What's happened here is the silver mineralization has either been slid across or thrust across the copper mineralization. But that happened on a contact, an erosional contact. Basically, you've got a conglomerate, which is near surface thing, that's been leached. And that leaching went down into the next bit of rocks below, the lower plate, we'll call it. In that lower plate is where they hit the high grade. And you can see it marked there. That's the strong lines coming across, and I've kind of put it right in. That's the high grade. The one hole ran, again, about 1.9%, I believe it was. And it's due to bornite in there. And we're not sure if it's actually part of the system, if it came from somewhere else, and how much of it might be supergene. There is some chalcocite. So that's sort of an unknown. Its propylitic going is much, much greater than the potassic alteration, telling us we're supposedly high in the system. And the timing of all these events really makes a difference as to how you interpret this. And given that this has been slid across or thrust across, anything sampled at the surface is essentially irrelevant to what's down below. So this is all geophysics that they're going to be testing. And again, the hole details 1.49% in the upper 45 meters. The rest of it grains 0.5. The next hole to the east ran 88 meters at 0.5, with the lower half, the lower 350 meters basically running 0.28%. Now, you got to keep in mind, we are too deep to throw an open pit on this thing at those grades. So we've got to look at this in terms of an underground block cave sort of operation. So your grades need to be pretty good. Subsequent drilling, you can see the results. They're basically 0.32, 0.3, 0.45, much lower. Again, there's a little bit of higher grade at surface, and then generally as you go down, it gets lower grade. But just roughly off the top of my head, we're looking at the numbers, this thing is averaging in the order of 0.4, excluding the high grade at the surface. Near surface, I should say. What's pending is drill hole 26, which I've drawn there in blue, and it's heading towards the east, towards the high IP anomaly. So what's really important to us, looking at investing in this company right now, or holding on to it if you still own it, what is going to be in that hole 26? All right, here comes the quiz, I guess. So the question to you all now, and I've gone through what I think's kind of the geology, and if there's anyone that has a question about what I'm saying, I'd be interested, put it out now, and then we'll do the quiz. Okay, I'm good. You're all on board, eh? All right. So, is this where we are in the system? Is this where hole 26 is going to go? Is this where we are in the system? Or is this where we are in the system? So number one is the shallower, or hitting the phyllic alteration, propylitic into the phyllic. Second one goes right through the phyllic, touches the top of the potassic, the higher grade. And the third one, the furthest one that direction, goes right into where supposedly the high-grade portion of this porphyry should be. So by a show of hands, I'd be curious, how many would think we're in where number one is, the first one I showed? All right, cool. How about the second? All right, how about the third? Okay, we'll see. They should be putting out results, I'm going to guess, for the roundup coming up, so we may see these tomorrow or the next day. I'm going to go back and just real quick, so we have room at the end for questions. That porphyry I drew was a very simplistic model. Normally these things are much, much more complex. And you can see what I've drawn there at the very top of these magma chambers is where that square box is. Above that you get the volcanoes, the lava flows, the hot springs, epithermal systems, and right where the dikes and such are coming up is sort of where the porphyry copper sits. And the more complex diagram is of a porphyry copper in Nevada, and you can see how complex these things really do get, or can get. Now it's important to keep in mind that with Hercules silver, the IP tends, they claim, we haven't seen the data, but they say that it's increasing to the northwest, and they haven't drilled out there. So it's open that direction. They've got 20-something million dollars. They're set for a long time, a good group. So we'll see what happens on later this week. But my guess is they're into the guts of it, and number 26 is going to be in their order of overall 0.35 to 0.55, which at those depths is not going to be economic. All right? Okay, I'm open to questions. Any questions? Yes, sir. First question was about the geometry of this thing, and it is going to be definitely more complex than that simple model I showed. And as I mentioned, they tend to be thinking the geochemistry is vectoring and the IP is vectoring to the northwest, which they haven't tested. And we don't know the geometry of it. That's definitely true. The second, at those grades, call it, what I'm thinking is 0.45% with a little bit of high grade at surface, which is only seen in that one, at that one hole it was above 1.8%. The other was below 1% and is much thinner. And the other holes, they didn't have that upper high grade to speak of. In my opinion, a block cave underground is the only way to go there because you're looking at a 400-meter strip just to get to the top of it so far. That's a huge hole. So it's got to be a block cave underground or some sort of big underground operation. Those really need to be 1+% to work because your CapEx, your development CapEx, your testing CapEx is going to be $100 million because it takes so much drilling and work and underground sampling before you can actually define the body and how you go about mining it. And the thing about a block cave underground, which is basically you come in underground, you make a hole, and everything falls into this hole and you pull it out. The difficulty with that is when everything falls in the hole, there's no grade control. Everything that drops in there has to go out. So there's no way to really selectively pull out high grade, at least with a big operation like that. Permitting, it's on state land, which is good news. Idaho is very positive towards mining. It is, however, drainage above the Snake River Canyon, and Snake River Wild Rivers is downstream from that. That may be an issue. Good? All right, thanks for the question. Yes, sir. Yeah. I think on hole 26 that they're running into what is probably going to be the average grade of this porphyry, which I think is going to run, I'll stick my neck out here, about 0.45, which doesn't work. Now, tomorrow I might be made look like a fool. It'll run 1% or 2%. But that's what I see. And, you know, that's sort of Joe and I's job, is to try and interpret something, tell our subscribers what it is, and give them the best advice we can. None of the holes have hit the potassic zone, according to Chris. And that's what I understand as well, although there is some potassic alteration down towards the bottom, but it's not real strong. So if there is a much stronger potassic core to that, they haven't hit it. That is correct. Good question. Why did VRIC get in as early as they did? Because Mark Bristow told them he wants copper. And which I think is an interesting point, is that VRIC, Newmont, a lot of the gold companies are looking for these big porphyry coppers because that's where the big money is. And they believe, as well as I, that the copper shortage is real, and it's going to be coming to fruition here in the next 5 years or less. And it's going to take, if this works out to be a discovery and a deposit, and they can permit it, it'll be 10 to 15 years at least before it can go into production. And VRIC, my understanding is that VRIC was in competition with a number of other major companies. Chris told VRIC that there's other people, you know, going over the data and making offers, if you will. And VRIC, having not been to site, said, right, here's $20 million. You know, we're done. We're deal done. So the VRIC moved fast without taking a look at the, you know, not actually visiting the property. Now, since they've been there, but I thought that showed how anxious they are to pick up copper projects in reasonably safe jurisdictions. Yeah. The higher grade right now sits at the high in the system. As you go deeper, the grade drops off. Yes, that higher grade could continue to the west, northwest. And I don't know how to, you know, it's still, you're looking at underground operation. The grade's good, for sure. If they can keep that grade and develop, you know, a few 100 million tons at that grade, it probably works. Southern Cross in Australia, in the Victoria Goldfields, their partner is Moss and Gold. I actually bought Moss and Gold because of that drill hole. I think Southern Cross is onto a real high-grade discovery down there. I like it. And I like I said, I bought Moss and Gold because I could buy it in the Canadian exchange and don't have the deal with the Australian. But yeah, I think I like it. Yeah, regardless of what hole 26 comes up with, they've got $25 million. They're set, and their IP is showing them to go to the northwest, and they've got at least a 20,000 meter drill program lined up to test deep along that trend. So this isn't dead by any stretch. It's still a good play. Thank you very much for sitting through this. Joe Mazumdar, who has been walking around this show, writes Exploration Insights. I think it's a great letter. Check it out. And there's our website, explorationinsights.com. Thanks much.